I think the biggest thing that shifted for me is just taking action even when you don't believe in yourself. And it can be really hard because you're questioning like, what's it all for? Is this going to work out for me? How am I ever going to make it or stand out? And then what you realize is that through still taking action and doing the things, you create momentum. And then when you've got that momentum there, you can start to see small results, and that consistency over time starts to compound. Hello, and welcome back to another episode on the Beauty Industry Leaders Podcast. I'm your host, Sammy Kennedy. Now, I have so much to update you on, and I swear there's always a million things going on in my life that between last week's episode and then this week's episode, so much happens that I don't even know where to start. So then I've got to try remember what I've told you previously and then link it up so that I'm not repeating myself. And then between you and my parents and Nick and my friends and my clients, sometimes I end up telling that one person the same story for the first time like 3 times because I forgot I've told them. And then I'll come on here and I'll get confused. And then I'll tell part 2 to a friend or a client without telling them part 1. And I'm just like, my gosh, please tell me I'm not the only one. Like, I swear this is an ADHD thing where you don't realize you're doing it, but you're telling people something for the first time in your head, but you've already told them, but not even once or twice, like 5 times. So I'm sorry if I've done that on the podcast. I'm just trying my best, you know? So to link up what I would have covered in previous episodes with the podcast studio, DigiDirect situation, we ended up finding out that the sandbags we ordered don't get manufactured anymore. The light stands have arrived, which is great. And then we cancelled one of the soft boxes because they had no ETA. Then we had 2 other soft boxes which were meant to come, and they said another 2 to 3 weeks. But in my mind, I thought, you know what? It's not worth the risk. And this is after we'd requested a refund for the other soft box. So tomorrow I'm going to ring up DigiDirect and then cancel those 2 soft boxes because I know there's no way that they would have them anyways. And yesterday I made an executive decision to order some soft boxes and a clamp to mount the soft box because we need one on the roof for the hair light. And then we've got 2 key lights, which are going to be 45-degree angles either side. So we've gone with the same brand as what the lights are, which is Amaran. So they are getting shipped through Amazon. They should arrive on the 13th of Feb, which will be when I'm at the retreat in Vietnam, but they're getting delivered to my grandparents' house. So thankfully, if I'm not here, I don't have to go through and try chase up and go collect things when I get back. I can just go straight to their house and then straight to the podcast studio, get those bad boys set up, and we will be prepping for our very first interview in the studio, which will be with Kiri and her husband Wesley from Amperna. And I'm really, really excited for it because they're traveling all the way across from Sydney, and she's got an incredible story. She's got some great skin products. I've used them myself, not from a PR perspective or anything like that. My skin therapist, Sam, she actually prescribed it to me when I was struggling with perioral dermatitis. And I'm really excited to unpack the story of how they've actually bootstrapped their brand to multi-7 figures and just seeing their dynamic of how they work together as a husband-wife duo. So very, very keen for that. So that's the podcast studio update. We should hopefully be able to start recording from around the 20th of Feb. Given that I come back from the retreat, I have some time to get everything together and set up. I've allowed myself to kind of have like 3-4 days of just assimilating back into my normal life after the retreat. And then I'll have all my one-on-one clients to catch up with again. And also just prepping for all the upcoming episodes, because right now I'm sitting in my studio apartment. It's an absolute mess between all the retreat merch, washing that hasn't been folded, my suitcase that still isn't unpacked from Melbourne. I feel like it's a bit of a shit show, but at the same time, you got to do what you got to do. And I am so committed to showing up for you, even when it's really painful, even when it's difficult, even when you're like, oh, I just can't be bothered doing it. But then I get to the mic and I'm really excited. So I know that this is my passion and I know that I want to invest my time into doing this. It's just part of me cannot wait to be able to post a video where I can compare where I started, which is in my studio apartment, and then show the podcast studio, because it's just like such an evolution. The next thing that has been going on in my life is preparing for the retreat, which it's really, really cool to see this vision that I had come to life. And yeah, just being in Vietnam with Nick last year in June and just seeing this venue and then going, yep, I'm going to host a retreat here. And now we've got people coming and we've got a group chat going and there's messages every day. And I just love it. I think this is what's missing from the industry and from so many of our lives as business owners. We get caught up in the day-to-day of just running things, trying to get the business sorted, trying to keep on top of staff, meetings, stock, trying to make sure your bookkeeping's all done. And amongst all of that, it kind of does get quite monotonous and amongst all of that, it does get quite repetitive. And sometimes you lose your spark or you're just not feeling inspired and you're like, what's it all for? And just having something like a retreat to be able to look forward to, where you can step out of your business, you can learn new things, you can meet new people, and you can have a fun time while doing it. I'm grateful that I'm in a position where I can actually plan and provide this experience to people, because it was something I always craved. And when I went on my first retreats, they completely changed my life. And now I'm like, oh my gosh, I get to design this and I get to intentionally choose who's speaking and how the days are presented and what activities we're doing. So I'm very, very excited for that. Can't wait for all the content. It's really funny. I was looking at this one post and I had this idea and I just executed it straight away. And it was basically, so when you watch Love Island or you see their social media, they're introducing each contestant. And so I took that piece of content and recreated it to introduce each one of our retreat guests and speakers, which I'm very excited to hit post on that, because I think that will just be funny and very relatable to going to the villa. And it's so funny because the Sheila Monogram, which is the resort we're staying at, it actually has this white massive fire pit. And so we've got all these ideas for content, which I think will just break the internet. You know what? It probably won't. It will be that time where you go, this is a great idea. You spend like 4 hours editing it and then like 10 people like it. That will probably happen. But anyways, got the vision there. Hopefully it does well, but I can't wait. So if you are looking for something to tune in on and get FOMO, then follow Beauty Industry Leaders and Sammy Kennedy Coach on Instagram, because we will be taking you behind the scenes on everything. Another really cool thing that has happened, which I wasn't expecting at all, is that I got selected as a panelist to present at International Women's Day in Perth on the 6th of March at Crown. And it's honestly such an honour and such a privilege to be able to be in a position where I can be on a stage and share my story. And you know what I was actually thinking, like complete transparency with you, if this was me anywhere from like 1 to 2 years ago, given where I was at in life, like struggling in debt, trying to prove myself, just trying to get out of this whole struggle, it would have been coming from a place of ego and needing to prove myself and validation. And what I realized is actually before I got announced as a speaker is I'm at this point in life where I finally feel like I don't have to prove myself anymore, and that instead of looking for validation and trying to go fuck everyone else and you know what, like I can do it, you say that, I'm actually at a point where I'm like, I know what I'm capable of and I've got the most incredible people surrounding me, and all I want is for the people that I care about to do well in life as well, because I know what it's like to be through that struggle and I know what it's like to be almost addicted to it in some ways, like not being able to enjoy yourself and have an easy life because everything has always been hard, that it doesn't feel safe. And so you put yourself in these situations where you stress yourself out or you add so much pressure and you got that imposter syndrome. And I think what I've realized is that throughout 2025, I lost all my belief in myself. Like, I didn't think that I was capable of being able to build a business. I didn't think I was capable of being able to build a podcast. Like, I just felt stagnant. And even though I knew I had the skills, I had the support, I had the resources, I have all the strategies and systems, that feeling inside me, it wasn't actually changing. And no matter how aware of it I wasn't able to shift it for a very long time. And so one of the things that really helped me was actually being able to do what Jess said on one of the previous podcast episodes, which I didn't actually think would work. And it was waking up, and the first thing you do is listen to a meditation. So I was listening to a gratitude meditation or an abundance style one, and it only went for about 10 minutes. And look, sometimes I didn't even make it through the 10 minutes. I only got to 8, and I was like, yep, that's good enough. And then also before I go to bed, I was listening to money ones, which were money mindset, like calling in wealth, feeling abundant. And yeah, for the first 3 weeks, it felt stupid. And then by about the 4th week, I really noticed a shift in like how I started seeing things. I was a lot more positive, I had a lot more gratitude. I started attracting more clients. I started feeling a lot more grateful for what I was building. And then all these opportunities started coming towards me. And so this year is the year of finding myself again and having that belief for what I'm building and making big moves, like doing retreats, hosting events, building a podcast studio, on top of the meditation and being able to start reprogramming my subconscious thoughts. I think the biggest thing that shifted for me is just taking action even when you don't believe in yourself. And it can be really hard because you're questioning, like, what's it all for? Is this going to work out for me? Why do I bother? There's no opportunity there. It's all saturated. Like, how am I ever going to make it or stand out? And then what you realize is that through still taking action and doing the things, you create momentum. And then when you've got that momentum there, you can start to see small results, and that consistency over time starts to compound. And it's only until you've been doing something consistently to the point where it's so boring because you've just done it that many times that you start to see the return on investment. And I think of business as like compound interest, right? It feels so stupid when you're putting like $10 away, but if you do that for 40 years, you let that compound interest grow, you could have hundreds of thousands of dollars. It's one of those things where I think in business, we put so much pressure on ourselves thinking that we should have already been here a year ago. We should have made more money. We should be further ahead. And because you haven't, then you're behind and you're a failure. And it's like all those thoughts can really get you down. But I think the other side is looking at what you have achieved and where you did come from and how much you've grown as a person, and being able to actually be present and appreciate that rather than just constantly looking for the next thing. I think that's why I'm where I am today, and actually being present and enjoying it for once and not thinking, okay, well, what's the next thing? Well, I'm not going to be doing good enough if I'm not launching this thing the next moment. So I don't know, there's a lot to unpack there. But if you're someone who has also been feeling like, what the hell am I doing? I'm not really sure. You're definitely not alone. It does happen to a lot of us, especially as high performers, because we have high standards, we have high expectations, and we're always raising the bar for ourselves, for our team, for our community. And when we're not meeting those standards or expectations as fast as we want, even if they are maybe a little bit unrealistic, it is easy to spiral and get down on ourselves. So if you're feeling that way, I just want you to take a step back and actually give yourself a pat on the back, because business is not easy. It's like a whole bloody identity shift. Like, you have to transform your whole internal belief system to be able to reach the next level. And that's the most confronting thing. It's like the person you are is not going to get you to where you want to be. And so you've got to let go of this whole identity and these habits and these beliefs that aren't serving you, and shift the way that you show up. Even if you don't believe it yet about yourself, acting as if you do and letting it become true for you, that's when you start to notice some serious growth. So with today's episode, I've done something that I've never done before. I've just gone into ChatGPT and said, can you please ask me 10 questions that I can answer in a solo episode for my audience? And I've done that because I actually don't have time to script an episode. and I need to get one done, and I didn't want it to not be valuable for you. So I'm going to read through each question and answer, and hopefully you learn something or you do find some value in it. So question 1 is, what do you wish more business owners understood about growth that no one tells them at the start? I believe that business owners do set unrealistic expectations on how fast, how much effort, and how much time it's going to take to grow a successful business. And when you don't see the results straight away, it's really easy to feel like a failure or want to give up. And when you're going through that whole journey of growth, like everyone says, it's not the destination, it's the journey to get there. It's who you have to become. And when you start realizing your business is going to be a direct reflection of how much you level up as a person, the business will also continue to level up. You can get more excited about making mistakes, failing, learning, implementing. You don't just sit there and wait for opportunities to come to you. So if I was talking to a new business owner about what are you about to get yourself into, I would say to them, anything is possible if you give yourself a decade to achieve it. Don't think week to week, think in decades. Think for the long term. Don't rush the process, because anything that is built very, very fast and has a huge amount of success very fast, it can also equally break just as fast. And sometimes sustainability and building something that is more intentional, it may take longer, but it will also form a strong foundation that can stand the test of time. And so my favorite thing that I tell people now is that it took us 18 years to become an overnight success for Wild West Bowling. That was our 8th business. And so, you lose money, you'll definitely lose people in your life, whether it's team, whether it's friends, whether it's family, things will happen. And that whole journey is going to be part of your growth, and who you become as a business owner is so important, because the more you grow, the more the business will grow. So don't force it. Don't expect it to happen overnight, because it's just not going to. The second question is, what's one belief you had early on in business that actually slowed your success, and how did you unlearn it? That belief would have been that I don't need help. I think when you start out in business, you have so much ego that you have to figure it out on your own, and you're not going to take advice from anyone, and you don't want to spend any more money because you've already gone and spent it on getting the business set up. And that really does keep a lot of people stuck. And it kept me stuck in the early days because I was really struggling. I remember having my lash business from home before I went into a commercial space. And it was my first business that was completely separate from my family. And I just had this pressure on myself that I couldn't ask for help. I needed to make it work. And I remember having cancellations and no shows, and I was just struggling because money was so inconsistent. And, I'd have $1,000 worth of bookings and then only like $300 worth would show up. And it completely deflated me, and I didn't know where to even start. And I remember I didn't have any money either. So I was just like, what do I do? But when I realized that, hey, I can actually borrow some money, I can go to an expert and ask them for help. And I put that money towards joining a mastermind, and I actually learned a lot of things. I was like, oh, this is how you stop cancellations. Oh, this is how you do marketing to get more clients. Oh, this is why this is happening. And so when I relaunched in the commercial space, I remember being fully booked and making my first 10K month in that first month of opening. And yeah, if I could go back, I wish I would have just asked for help sooner. Like that pride and that ego, that is what keeps you stuck. And the moment you actually accept that you don't know it all, and there's going to be other people out there who know things that can help you, that can do things better than you, use them to leverage and improve your own situation rather than actually staying stuck and going, yep, I have to do it all, because you don't. The most successful people are not always the smartest person in the room, because they know they need to hire the smartest person in the room to help them continue growing and having that success. Question number 3 is, what does being busy usually distract us from fixing in our business? If I look at being busy, it's usually an avoidance of doing something that feels uncomfortable, something that overwhelms us, something that we don't understand, something that we fear we may not like the outcome of if we actually address it. And a great example of this is avoiding your numbers, right? If you are so busy, you've got clients and you've got kids and you've got to go out on the weekend for someone's birthday, you got this, you got that. I'm always busy. Like, you're busy because you're avoiding it. You're busy because it's not a priority for you. You're busy because you don't actually want to do it because you're scared. And that's where all of this procrastination comes in. So if it is something that stresses you out, if it is something that you're not good at, then the sooner you address it, the sooner you get help, or the sooner you create the time and space to actually get it done, the less anxious you're going to be. And so instead of always being busy, I think it's important for us to actually have times within our week where we block out time to do nothing. Like, I'm talking even, a half-hour block somewhere in your week where no phone, no podcast, no music, no TV, no talking to anyone, just laying there and just processing, because we are overstimulated. We have a million things going through our minds, and we don't allow ourselves to get bored anymore. You'd be standing at the traffic lights and you wouldn't be on your phone, so you could actually have those thoughts that drop in and help you solve problems. Or, you might be on the toilet and then you think about something, but not anymore because everyone's on their phones. So being able to actually slow down and create the space will help you get things done that you actually need to get done if it is a priority for you, or it'll help you process and you'll come up with a solution which will then motivate you to get the thing done. So that would be my answer for that one. Question 4 is, what's the biggest difference you see between business owners who stay stuck and those who scale sustainably? This is a great question, and I honestly have seen it so many times in the family business, in the clients I've worked with, who succeeds and who stays stuck. So the ones that scale sustainably, they have systems and processes. So everything that they do in the business, they document step by step, so that if anyone were to come into the business, whether it's a new team member, a manager, if someone bought the business, they could read this step-by-step process and execute it efficiently themselves. And that is what creates efficiency and consistency within the whole business. And when you can have those systems and processes in place, you can scale it. And then scaling just becomes a matter of cash flow, right? Like, if you've got the demand there, the cash flow is coming through, then you can forecast for the next team member to come in. So it's really a systems and processes plus a numbers game. Those who stay stuck are the ones who either don't make the time and effort to create systems and processes, or they are too much of a control freak because they don't think anyone else can do this as well as they can. And so they take over everything and they don't trust other people. And I think that's a huge personality trait that you would see with dictators, but not in leaders, because leaders, they will build out the system or process. They will train up the team member. They will give them the support needed for them to thrive on their own. And then once they are trained up efficiently, they can trust that they will do the job and they will create that level of accountability. Whereas the dictator is always trying to micromanage, is always on their back, is always nitpicking at little things. And it's just like, if you're going to hire someone and you're trying to scale your business, you need to trust that they are the right person for the job. And if you're not hiring the right people for the job, then that actually comes back onto you. It comes down to the way that you are running your hiring process, the kind of job advertisements you put out, like your onboarding process. So everything in business does come back to you as the owner. However you're operating will be a direct reflection of the results you get in your business. The 5th question is, where do most business owners think their problem is and where is it actually coming from? 9 times out of 10, when I have clients come to me with an issue, they always think that clients is the number one solution to everything. Like, if I just have more clients, I'll have more money and then everything will be better. If I have more clients, I can hire more staff. If I have more clients, I'll have more money. If I have more clients, it doesn't actually always solve the problem, because sometimes there's other issues in the business that haven't been addressed, which is a direct reflection of why they're having a client issue. So one of them could be you don't have a marketing strategy in place. You're just kind of posting things willy-nilly and praying that you'll get some clients from it. It might be that you and your team don't have good sales skills. So when it comes to the rebooking process, they're not actually getting asked to rebook, or it's a very awkward and uncomfortable situation for the client so that they don't rebook. Like, it might feel too pushy because they don't know how else to come across. Like, it's just, there's so many things that could be happening in that part of the process. It could be that you're not actually looking after your staff. It might be that they're not happy at their job. It might be that they're not trained correctly, and so they're not actually getting the results for the clients. They're not coming back. So most people think, hey, if I just get more clients, life will be great. But you've actually got to look at, why are you struggling to get clients in the first place? What's happening with the clients that you already have? And what could we optimize or fix within that before we just pour fuel on the fire and get you more clients? And also, if you're thinking getting more clients will solve all your money problems, but let's say your pricing is not profitable and you're barely breaking even, it'll just equal more burnout. Getting more and more clients through the door with unprofitable prices will just cause you and your whole team to have a whole bunch of bookings, no money to show for it. And it's like, well, it's not actually a client problem, it's a pricing problem, it's a cash flow management problem. So I think that's probably the number one thing that I'm really seeing in the industry. Otherwise, the other one that I've seen creep in is when you have a business owner blaming their team for everything, and especially when they go and leave and start their own business. Like, if you've listened to any of these podcast episodes with people and why they started a business, especially if they've actually come from working in another person's business, it's always because they were treated unfairly, they weren't valued, and there wasn't any growth opportunity for them in the business. So sometimes it's easy to blame everyone else, but you've actually got to look at yourself and go, what could have I done wrong? What could have I contributed to this situation or outcome? How could I change the way I react? How could I support them better? How could I show up as a better leader? I think those are the questions that you got to ask yourself before you start blaming everyone else for your problems. Question 6 is, what systems or decisions gave you the biggest return on time, not money? 100% going to say AI, and then also building out my Go High Level. And Go High Level, if you don't know, is like a whole system for your online business. So it's got website, it's got funnels, it's got contracts, it's got community, it's got courses, calendars, everything you could possibly need in there. If you're looking to build an online business, whether it's education, courses, trainings, anything like that, hit me up in the DMs, because we've got an epic team that can do a build for you or support you in the back end build of that business through what we've done. And yeah, having that has been insane, because I didn't have systems and processes prior to Go High Level. I did have a couple of things in Kajabi, but everything was disjointed. You got an email marketing platform, and then you got a website here, and then you got another calendar platform here, and just having it all in one place and streamlined. So when someone books, there's an email that gets sent, there's a form that goes out, just being able to have those touch points automated, that gave me the biggest return on time, not money. And also having my own custom GPTs built out that could really support my team with anything, like whether it was email marketing, whether it was blogs, whether it was creating a social media strategy, carousels, podcasts, scripting, market research. Having custom GPTs has saved me from taking 20 hours to do the back end things in my business down to like 2, if that. So once again, systems and processes. I think the best operators have really intentionally spent time focusing on the quality of their systems and processes. And then once they've got that quality, they're like, how can we improve the efficiency? And that's something that I encourage you to do if you want more time back and more money this year. And that's what the retreat's all about. It's about teaching those business owners how to actually build strong foundations, strategies, systems, and processes to be able to actually scale their business. Because without those, everything's very disjointed. There's a lot of overwhelm. Things are done inconsistently, and it takes a lot more time and energy out of you to be showing up, doing things manually, ad hoc all the time. So the more you automate your life, the more you start to reduce the overload like the mental overload of having to make all these decisions because you've got things happening in the background on autopilot, the easier it gets, the less reactive you become, and the more opportunity you have with time, with money. So it's something I really encourage you to invest in is, once again, building out those systems and processes, whether it's in a platform, whether it's your Google Calendar, whether it's how you manage your cash flow. Having different things in there is going to help support you so much more in reaching your next level. Now, the seventh question I have is, how do you know when it's time to stop learning and start implementing? This is definitely something that I learned the hard way. It took me investing $150,000 in coaches and courses and masterminds and events before I actually realized that I was distracting myself from the implementation. And so when you learn so much and you get in these rooms, it's really motivational, right? You feel good, you're excited, you get that little dopamine hit, that boost that, I'm going somewhere in business. And then when you get back home, you're not actually implementing any of it. Or you're only implementing small parts, but all that stuff that you built out or you spoke about, you never revisit your notes. You don't finish off the task that you started. And I think that's where you've actually got to look at, okay, well, if I had 4 quarters in the year, right? If I had 3 months to focus on improving one thing in my business, what would it be? And if you can get really clear on what that thing would be, and then ask yourself, what support do I need? What do I need to learn? Who do I need to hire? What do I need to outsource? If you can start thinking like that and you create one theme of improvement for each quarter, by the end of the year, you would have nailed 4 things that you were struggling with in your business. The way you do it is you plan out, you learn, you get the support, you implement the thing, you achieve it, you tick it off, and then, and only then, do you move on to the next thing. And that's what I've started to do a lot more over the last couple of years. And it's the reason why I saw more growth, because I was able to focus intentionally on one thing, master it, and then naturally I would evolve into the next thing. So an example of that was I nailed my marketing. I understood lead gen. As a result, I was able to make more clients, get more money. I brought that cash flow in. The next problem, profitable pricing. Okay, let's create a resource for that. Cool. We've now got that income projection, cash flow calculators. Like I built out all of that. Then I started to realize, okay, the next thing is having this money. Now, where do you put it? So I started learning investing. Like it just becomes this natural evolution. But if you try to learn all 10 things at once, you're not going to be good at any of them. The next question, number 8, is what does leadership look like when you're tired, overwhelmed, or doubting yourself? When you're tired, overwhelmed, or doubting yourself, especially in a leadership role, it's really important that you don't get into that reactive state of mind, because when you're at your lowest, you've got so much responsibility and pressure on you, whether it's team members, for me, it's family, it's my partner, it's clients. Like there's just so much going on. Sometimes you just need to actually extract yourself out of that situation and give yourself a moment to just breathe. If you can breathe, if you can recenter and refocus, you're going to be able to take the overwhelm, the emotion, the stress out of your decision making, and then you can actually approach the problem in a way that's going to allow you to make a good decision. And so when you're tired, you're overwhelmed, you're doubting yourself, you're not in your best state of mind. So you've actually got to put yourself first so that you can show up as the best version of you for other people. And so it doesn't look like doing more. It doesn't look like trying to take over and freak out. It's actually about calling on people and saying, this is where I'm at. This is what I need from you. And being honest about it, I think. If you're just trying to hide behind everything, you don't communicate, and then you just blow up at people, it's the worst way to be. And so people can only support you if they know where you're at. And sometimes leadership is being vulnerable. If you're tired, if you're overwhelmed and doubting yourself, you don't want to project that energy onto everyone else around you. And then you create this level where everyone's miserable because nothing will get done. So I think as leaders, we have to lead the way and show people the standard or the expectation, or like inspire them through our own actions. And at the same time, it's not inspiring to see someone burn themselves into the ground and become miserable, resent everything, become reactive. So making sure that if these situations come up, you communicate where you're at, you take the space and the time to be able to do something and fill up your cup. Like, I get it. Sometimes it's not ideal. Sometimes you just can't go on a holiday and like not talk to anyone for 2 weeks, which is probably what you need. But even if it's like half a day and you're at your business and you say, look, I've got to go home early. I just need to take this time for myself and I can come back in tomorrow and help you with these things. I'll have a fresh set of eyes on everything. Like, great. But if you just ignore, you get all shitty with people and then you're coming home and you're taking it out on your partner, it's not healthy. So having your own system to identify the warning signs when you're going downhill is really important. And if you can't do it, then get someone close to you who can check in and also let you know so that you do look after yourself, because the more you look after yourself, the better version you are of yourself, the better version you are to everyone else, and the more you can actually have that impact when you are showing up and leading. The second last question is, if someone feels behind compared to others in their industry, what do they need to hear right now? You're not behind. You're exactly where you're meant to be. I think if you genuinely look at all the series of events that have happened in your life, you shouldn't regret anything or feel like you should be further ahead or that you're falling behind, because there's a reason that you are where you are today. Whether something traumatic happened to you, whether you had an insane period of growth, whether you went through something really hard, whether you're celebrating a huge win, everything that you go through in life is bringing you to where you are today, and it's helping you evolve into the person you're meant to become. And so comparing yourself to others, you're on a completely different journey. And it's funny, like I used to compare myself to people who are in Forbes and people who are making multi-million dollars and thinking, why am I not there yet? But then there's someone comparing themselves to me going, how has she got a podcast? How has she got a multi-million dollar business with her family? How has she got on stage for this International Women's Day? And then there's someone looking at that person going, how did they leave their job and how did they start their business? It's like comparison is the thief of joy. It doesn't matter what you're doing. It doesn't matter how successful or how shit you feel in your business. Everything that you've built will almost feel like it's not worth it when you're constantly comparing to what other people are doing. And so I mute other people in the industry that I don't want to see their content because it's a distraction. It's not helpful. If they're doing the same thing as me, like if they're copying me, like I don't want to know about it. And so that's the biggest piece of advice I could give you for that, is actually just muting things and focusing on you. And like I said at the start of the episode, like losing all that belief in myself is because I felt like I was falling behind. I kept seeing everyone else doing better than me, and it made me feel like I'm not good enough. And I know we all go through it, right? Like I even remember at the gym, I would see this chick, her name's Albany, and she's so stunning. Like we're really good friends and she is just jacked. And I would keep thinking like, how is she so jacked and like I'm fit? And then this other chick's going, I wish I had your gym body. And I'm just like, we're always looking at other people and what everyone else is doing, and it's not helpful. But the thing that is really helpful, that will give you the gratitude, the motivation, and help you get to your next level, is realizing how far you've come. Like, look at where you were a year ago. Look at where you were 5 years ago. I know you're not the same person because you wouldn't even be listening to this podcast if you were. There's people out there who live the exact same day every single day and they don't change anything, but that's not you. You have come so far. You have done so many incredible things that to other people looking in on your life, they will be comparing themselves to you. Like, don't just think you're the only one comparing to others. And if you can take a moment to just soak it in and celebrate the wins along the way, the small wins matter just as much as the big ones, because if you don't even recognize the small wins as they're happening, you'll never feel and appreciate the big ones. And that is coming from experience. So you're not behind. You're exactly where you need to be. And the only person that you should be comparing yourself to is who you were yesterday, is who you were a year ago, who you were 10 years ago. The last question for today's episode is, if you had to strip business back to the fundamentals, what should every owner focus on first and why? I believe every single business owner should have a branding kit. And if you've worked with me, you would definitely have the custom template that I've built out, and you would have built out your brand. And I think when we look at why do we start a business? Yes, it's usually to make money, but it should be about solving a problem and going out on a mission to achieve solving that problem. And if more business owners focused on their why, their mission. Like, what are you setting out to achieve? How are you doing it differently than what's already existing in the world? When you're so clear on what your why is, what your mission is, no matter when you're having a down day, no matter when you're pivoting in a different direction, like you always come back to your mission, and that's how you get back into alignment or motivation. And if you don't know what your mission is, if you don't know what you're working towards, that's when it's really easy to get distracted, or you feel like you're not going anywhere because you're not actually working towards something. So if you had to strip business back to fundamentals, the first thing you want to do is look at, what is your mission? Who are you helping? What are you actually helping them with? And how is it different or unique from what already exists within the world? If you can answer those three things in your mission statement, it's a great thing to come back to on those days where you're like, what am I doing? Or even when you're celebrating as well, because you're like, I am achieving, I'm working towards that mission. This is happening. I brought this into fruition. So if you want something to do this week that isn't going to take hours, isn't going to overwhelm you, the one thing I encourage you to do is actually get clear on what is your mission in business. Why did you start it? Who are you helping? What are you helping them with? How are you doing it differently from everyone else? So that concludes today's episode. I appreciate you for listening in. And if you've made it all the way to the end, send me a message and let me know which question you loved the most, or which one resonated the most, and what has your experience been? I'd love to have a conversation. I actually have been receiving a fair few DMs and want you to know that I take the time to actually read and reply to every single one of them, because like I've said a million times, it's a one-way street here. I can't see your reaction. I can't see the chat box lighting up. I've just got to wing it and hope for the best. But what I am hoping is that maybe, I'm not even going to say next episode because it's not going to be ready by then, but after Vietnam, let's say maybe 2 episodes, we should be in the new podcast studio, which means a huge level up in audio, in video, in vibes. But I'm also looking for some experts outside of the beauty industry, which I'll be bringing onto the show. And I found some really cool people, so I think you'll love them. But if you have any suggestions for people that you would love me to interview in the new studio, especially if they're in Perth, because that just makes it so much easier, they don't have to fly, please send me a message. I'd love to have a chat, have a stalk, figure out if they're a good fit. And yeah, you know what? All these episodes, and I still struggle to finish an episode. That's like the hardest part. It's not trying to not say or like or or getting frustrated because I repeat myself saying the same things over and over again. It's actually trying to conclude an episode. I still have not nailed that. So I might add that to my 2026 goals. Thank you so much for listening. I will see you in the next episode. Bye now.
Audience exclusive.